Welcome. I'm Trisha Bennett. I live on the northeast coast of the United States. I am one of the founding members of Shaman's Directory, and I am always honored to be one of the hosts for our Saturday live events. And I am delighted today to welcome Evelyn Rysdyk. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thanks for having me.
And Evelyn is going to talk today about fearlessly unraveling our over-domestication, which is such a wonderful title. And again, feel free to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're from. During our live events, we do not take questions aloud. We take questions in the chat. So if you have questions or comments for Evelyn as we go through today's program, please put them in the chat. For those of you who don't know us at Shaman's Directory, we are an online global platform dedicated to bringing shamanic earth-based services to the world's doorstep. We are inclusive of original people, First Nation healers, and modern-day lineage-based shamanic practitioners. We are a nonprofit created for healers, teachers, clients, and the curious to offer global access to shamanic healing and teaching, and to contribute to the preservation and illumination of traditional and indigenous wisdom across the planet. If you are not a part of our growing global community, we welcome you to sign up for our newsletter at shamansdirectory.com and to learn more about us or follow us on social media at Shaman's Directory. And all of our live events are recorded and posted within about 24 hours on our YouTube channel. So there's a lot to discover there as well. So I am truly honored this morning to welcome Evelyn Rysdyk. And for those of you who don't know her, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So described as part storyteller, part minister, part scientist, and part fairy godmother, Evelyn C. Rysdyk is the author of several noted books on shamanism, including The North Shaman, Spirit Walking, A Course in Shamanic Power, A Spirit Walker's Guide to Shamanic Tools, The Nepalese Shamanic Path with Bola Banstola, and Shamanic Creativity. Along with her writings, Evelyn is an impassioned shamanic teacher and storyteller with over 30 years of experience working with people who are eager to grow and experience their true power. She has been a featured speaker for the Shift Network, Sounds True, and other online teaching venues. She is the founder of Spirit Passages Academy and the New Humans, New Earth Summit. Whether through face-to-face contact with individual clients, workshop groups, and online participants, or through the printed word, Evelyn uses her loving humor and passion to open people's hearts, expand their awareness, and inspire them to live more joyful, fulfilling, and purposeful lives. She acknowledges that as people awaken their full selves, they are much more likely and able to make their unique contributions toward positively transforming our world. So welcome, Evelyn. And again, the topic for today is fearlessly unraveling our over-domestication.
Thanks for that introduction. And I don't know how many of you actually know this, but human beings and the different species that we have domesticated, both animal and from the plant kingdom, are the largest biomass on the planet. We have supplanted all the natural larger biomasses with our domesticated way of being. Now, while that may have served us, it hasn't done very much good for the rest of the natural world, which we're finally awakening to. And as a person who is Scandinavian, I learned some of my grandparents' way of understanding the world. They moved to the United States when they were teenagers. And it led me to jump into that world, because everything that we imbue as divine in our mind, no matter what culture we are from, becomes a spirit that we can work with. And if you don't believe me, the next time it's cold and your car is being cranky and won't start, and you pat it on the dashboard and go, "Come on, honey, you can do it." We inspirit those things that are around us. And we tend to create, we can call them archetypes, we can call them gods, goddesses, deities. We tend to create something that provides a bridge for us to the invisible world. So we'll be working a little bit with that today. So one of the things in the Norse tradition, the Old Norse divided the world into sort of two camps. There was the Innangard, which literally translates to being inside the enclosure, the domesticated space, the farm, the area that was fenced in for your herd, if you had sheep, that whole area that you would defend against the natural world. So if you're raising sheep, you're worried about wolves, that kind of thing. The other side was the Utangard, the wildness, the wilderness, the wild animals, the wild storms, all of that was seemingly uncontrollable by us. And so we decided that that was out there and it was scary. Some of this, without those words, has certainly translated to Euro-colonial culture. Anything that doesn't quite fit in the box gets trimmed on either side so it fits in the box, inside the fence. So that it also creates that need to create more order, more rules to keep the human beings inside the enclosure as well. So that movement to kind of eliminate that which was literally uncontrollable, that was scary, that was on the other side of the fence and might eat our sheep or nibble on our crops, that became demonized in a lot of ways. And that hasn't served us well, because in some ways it means we have also, as individuals, tended to shut down part of ourselves that didn't fit in the box. So you may have done that to fit into your family when you were young. You may have done that, and not to a great or lesser degree, because any of it is a diminishment of who you are, but that fitting inside of the way school was run, the way your church was run, the way your family was run, limited you and took away some of your birthright as an aspect of nature that is allowed to express the fullness of who you are. And what I love about the Norse pantheon is their, excuse me, let me have some tea here. It's summertime and the plants are doing their thing. There we go. So that domestication works across a good part of the Norse pantheon. If you think about Odin and his crowd in the upper world there, he likes order, likes to keep things orderly. He can violate the rules, but nobody else can. But in that larger pantheon, there are a group of female beings that are giants, first of all, which is scary to a lot of the gods to begin with. And the ones that are most troublesome often have giants in their ancestry. And there's a bunch of them that live far outside the fence. So they are in part of the giants world, but it's the iron forest. And I'll use the English translations because it's so much easier. They live in the iron forest. And the rest of the Norse pantheon refers to them as troll women, as if that was a bad thing. They refer to them as witches, if that was a bad thing. And there's a sense of them being someone to be afraid of. And precisely because they're not expressing themselves in a domesticated way. They're not following the rules of that larger deity society. And because of that, I find them to be deliciously inspirational teachers. Because they make their own rules to a large degree. They are doing beneficial tasks, but they are doing it in a way that is not, sylph-like and soft. It's more like the elders were in my family, where they would simply say what was on their mind and suggested to the children what might be best in their own interest to follow. So I'm going to talk about a few of them to begin with, and then we're going to be doing a journey to one who is my absolute favorite and is the most out there of all of them. The first one, the first one is actually part of a triumvirate, and I'll anglicize the names. It's Urd. She's the eldest of the three Norns that are responsible for kind of bringing energy in from the invisible worlds and beginning to form it, and in so doing, forming our lives. So they are older than time. They are like the new physics. They bring in from the world of that sea of radiance, they bring in particles and they begin to work with that fabric that they're creating to create different people's lives. She also guards the well of cosmic memory, so she has to be older than that. And that well is also part of the collective knowledge and has healing properties. She has two sisters, Verdandi and Skuld, and they are, the eldest is Urd, and the middle one is Verdandi. I'm sure she has issues being a middle child. And then we have Skuld, who is the youngest. So they work together, and they're basically spinning reality all the time. It's kind of a cool thing. And they are, by the way, giantesses. And so you can think of this energy, whether you see them with faces or perceive them as human-shaped, they are that energy of constantly becoming and unraveling that is our cosmos. It's a big concept, so it took three of them. Next is, I'll use Modgud, which is, it's like Motgötter. And she's the guardian of the bridge that separates our world from Helheim. Now, some people hear the word hell, they think of it having two L's, and with the Christian idea that if you're bad, you go there. But Helheim is actually the place where everybody who did not die heroically in battle goes after death. So the heroes get split up. The heroes go to either Freya's hall. She gets to choose first, by the way. She gets half of the noble slain. You bet you didn't know that, because that's not well known. And Odin gets the other half. And they're whooping it up in both halls, you know. But the rest of our family, the ones that die of old age or sickness or accident or die in childbirth or die as children, go to Helheim, and she cares for them. So this character, Modgud, Motgötter, it's hard to pronounce, so I don't even bother. It's got those kind of letters that you only see in Old Norse. She is the guardian of that bridge, and it's very similar to the river Styx. It's a wild river, and she doesn't do it alone. She's a warrioress, giant also, warrioress with, spears and swords and whatever it is she needs. But she also has a giant hound with many eyes. So in the Greek stories, you've got a hound with three heads, Cerberus. In the Norse, it's one big hound with many eyes. And they're in charge of making sure the dead stay on one side and the living stay on this side. So they are protecting the domain of Hel, who is a mother goddess, by the way. She is a caregiver. She's caregiving most of our ancestors after they have passed on from the physical world. And she has, I think, some parallels to the Germanic Hulda or Perkta. And she has a radiant side and a kind of dark side. So her face and her body is half a beautiful female person, and the other side is a corpse or a skeleton. And what I love about that image, which we are sort of tentative about in Western colonial culture, is we carry our death with us. We have an expiration stamp on us somewhere that we cannot read. And she has this reminder that it's not something scary, it's something inevitable, and there's something that can come after it. And I love the idea that in spite of the sort of butch Viking thing where you get to go to Valhalla or to Freyr's Hall after you've been slain in battle, there's also a place to hold all the others with tenderness, with care, and that sense of protection. It gives them a place of rest, gives them a place to grow if they choose, and decide if they want to come back in one other form. So Hel, although fearsome looking, is actually very kind, very loving, and nurturing. But you can't tell that to the rest of the gods necessarily. So there's another character who is inspirational. There is a character called Gulveg, and that name has been translated to golden elixir, golden power, a power drink. I mean, they try to translate what that name is. She is looked upon with disdain by the gods in the top of the world tree. And so they decide to get rid of her. And so they stab her and burn her. And she survives. So they do it again. Let's do it a second time. They stab her and burn her, and she survives. They do it a third time, and she survives. And what happens to her is this is an initiation story, because the most powerful of the deities try to eliminate her, and she rises up as what we would call a shaman. They would call him a Volva. The seeress, the one who knows the past, present, and future, has access to that as we do with our shamanic journeys. And so she is a wonderful character to think about when we are going through a rough patch. We can call on her to help us with that process of allowing ourselves to be transformed by experience, but that transformation can be a source of regeneration in a different form. So I love the fact that, you couldn't kill her. I like that. I like that idea a lot. So you can also think of her in some ways as the three stages of cosmic time, the formless, then we have the creation of form, and form exists for a while, and then there's a dissolution. Kind of our birth, life, death cycle in our human bodies, but that same kind of cosmic time where there is that stream that is really kind of circular, because energy is never lost, it takes another form. And so you can think of her as holding some of that energy, that we're capable of evolving as long as we're alive. We're capable of change. We're capable of real powerful transformations. As long as we're here, we can do that with our intent and following it up with action. So I like Gullveig in that way as a reinforcement of what it is we can do. Now, I don't recommend that you go and get yourself speared or burned, but life will provide those opportunities, whether it be an illness or an accident or the loss of a job or a divorce or a death. All of those things are like our version of being speared and burned. They take us down to the very core of who we are. Sometimes we don't feel as though we're going to survive them. And that is that place that is a kind of alchemical place for us to decide what it is we want to take forward of what we have with the changes we have experienced. And I think that's a powerful, powerful way to look at the inevitable changes we will go through in our lives. Thank you. Somebody typed that in. Very good. So I love the idea that also in her defying her own death 3 times, you might as well do it 3 times to really prove that, okay, we'll let you be, that she becomes someone who can basically perceive what others cannot, which is the gift we all have when we journey. We can see beyond the limits of space-time. And if you're not visual, you will perceive beyond the limits of space-time. You are no longer limited in your perception to ordinary reality. So in some ways, our journeys take us into the Utangard, because you're stepping outside the fence that you've been taught is reality. And that's an important piece to hold on to. You violate the rules of space-time every time you journey, but you're doing that for a purpose. You're doing that to recognize, first of all, you are not limited. You are an eternal being who will decide what you want to do after you lose this body. And you may decide to come back, you may decide to take some other form, but there's an aspect of you as a spirit that moves forward. And you've met spirit, so you know that feels solid inside of you. I digress. Let's move on to another goddess. So there is a story in the sagas about the death of Odin's beloved son, Balder. And of course, the gods are all bereft. The gods and goddesses are, horrified that this dear one, everybody loved him, one of those kind of characters. And so they're going to build a funeral boat for him, a god-sized funeral boat. So they build the biggest boat that they can imagine, right? Huge, huge, huge boat. And they fill it with everything he will need for the other world. So in those burial boats that they would either bury or send out and burn, they would put everything, including a disassembled house, carts, horses, food, clothing, anything that you would need in life was put into that boat. Now, I'm sure they were all God-sized ones, right? They get all done with this magnificent boat, and Balder's body is on it. It's all ready to be pushed out into the water, and they've made it so heavy, no one could move it. It's on the beach. The rollers are there, but the boat is too heavy for even gods who are known for their strength. Thor, who's half giant, he can't move it. They work together. They can't push it out into the water. And then they go, oh, there is somebody. There's somebody we can call. Oh, but do we really want to do that? And they have to hem and haw a little bit, and they go, let's call Hirokin. So Hirokin is stronger than any other of the deities. She lives in that iron forest with many of the others. She is a giantess, and she can accomplish what others would find impossible. Now, that is a heck of a good ally. Because how many times do you bump into something as part of your growth, as part of your evolution, the changes you're going through, where you feel, there's no way I can do that. And having Hirokin as an ally, a spirit that you can go to, gives you that support to be able to do something heroic in your life about moving through something that felt impossible. And I think now probably more than any time I remember in my life, and I'm pushing on the doorway of 70, it requires courage to live here now. There are so many things that are disrupting the fabric of our lives. Our climate being one of the issues, the rise of fascism in many different places in the world, those things that would try to shut us down, those things that would cause us to feel that we were helpless. Anything where we feel that sense of disempowerment is a good time to call Hirokin. When Hirokin shows up, when they call her and they're like, oh God, we have to call her. Okay, well, let's do it. And she comes riding in. Imagine this sort of wild character riding in on a gigantic wolf, and she's using poisonous snakes as reins. So that, you can just imagine the rest of the gods and goddesses going, oh dear. But she leaps off her wolf, goes over there, and with one hand, pushes the boat out into the water. So that's the kind of character you want on your side, for sure. And it also helps you, I have to say, her energy helps you to say no when saying no is really hard. I'm going to do an analogy in some ways. If you think about the Tibetan Buddhist pantheon of forms of compassion, there are the ones that are sweet and they will help you and they will do this and they will do that. And then there are ones with fangs and claws, and they're the ones that tell you no. Just like you have to help a child to survive to adulthood by sometimes saying no. And you say no from that place of love when you're a parent, hopefully. Not screaming it at the top of your lungs. So we sometimes have to do that, and that can be difficult. To say no to a loved one, to say no to a job, say no to things that it feels uncomfortable to say no. Even though part of you knows it's the right thing to do, it's like it's disturbing all that Innangard that you've been programmed with. So that is also a good time to call Hirokin. And you don't have to know exactly where they are. Your power animals, your teachers, they can take you. You never have to worry about that. The last giantess I'm going to talk about in this context is Freya. Freya is not necessarily thought of as a giantess, but she is referred to as large. And Thor, who is half giant, was able to disguise himself as Freya so that they were going to try to fool someone else. And they did successfully fool someone else because apparently Freya must be large too. And she is, again, the one that gets half the noble slain, and she gets to choose first because she's the head of the Valkyries. So it's like, I want my half first. Thank you very much. And she is the goddess of fertility, sex, battle, gold, and also, this is where it has a resonance for us, Sather, which is a form of, not literally a shamanism in the way that we think about it, but it is the act of stepping out of ordinary reality for visions. They are seeresses. Some men as well. There are seers in the group, but it's far more common to have been a woman. And that seeing would be used to look ahead, to see what's coming, to be prepared for whatever was shifting and changing in the, you're being taken over by this jarl for a while, and now you're under that person's control, rule. And what's interesting about Freya is at the end of the worlds, there's an end of the world in the Norse that's called Ragnarok, which you might know from some Marvel movie anyway. When everything is destroyed, she survives. And she survives as a Blutgieter, which is kind of a ceremonial priestess. And what she does in that kind of wasteland after the fact is create, through her attention, a new fertile world. And she's doing that to pave the way for what we could call the new humans. Out of the tree will be born Leaf and Leaf Thracer, and that is life and eager for life. They are kind of the Adam and Eve of after the destruction. And they will emerge from the world tree and repopulate the world. So Freya has this interesting job description. So she's involved in battle, she's involved in sex, she's involved in fertility, the act of bringing children into the world, and she works with the threads of reality as a völva. She practices Sather. She actually is the one who kind of is the queen of Sather. And so these giantesses, I think, are good archetypes for us to work with, because the main reason being that Eurocolonial culture is primarily patriarchal and has eliminated, or has tried to eliminate, as much of that divine feminine energy as is possible, which is not just a loss to women. It's really important. The fact that men don't have access, and they have not been taught in general, there's a generalization here, but they have not been taught the full suite of their feelings. They're not allowed to express confusion, fear, depression, unease. All of those suite of feelings don't fit in what is socially acceptable. And so that loss is that loss of the sacred feminine that dances with the sacred masculine. So there is a character that I want to move to, who I really adore. And she's probably the most uber Utangard as is possible. So that is Angrboda. Angrboda is if you have had a troublesome relationship with your mother, she's a perfect one to go to, because she loves unconditionally. And we know this because her 3 children that she had with Loki, everyone's afraid of them, except their mother, who loves them. One of her children is Hel, the goddess of death, the one that is half human face, beautiful, fresh skin, and the other side looks like a corpse. We're a little afraid of death, right? We don't know what's on the other side. Even when we journey on it, it's like, well, okay. Because we've kind of gotten used to this life, right? One of her other children is the great wolf Fenrir, who will participate in the end of the world. And third is the Midgard serpent that rings all of our reality. And every time it moves a little bit, we have earthquakes. When it sort of rearranges its body. And it's like an Ouroboros where the head bites the tail. It's a perfect ring. And so the idea that she is this perfectly, unconditionally loving mother, she represents that perfectly. And she will love us when we go to her in the expression warts and all. She loves you for who you are. So if you have struggled with being parented by your mother or your grandmother or whatever, she's an excellent one to work with, because first of all, she's a giantess, she kicks butt, and she is able to open her heart big enough for everyone. So this character, who is the sort of chieftain of that ironwood, and all of them are shapeshifters, by the way. They can shapeshift into wolves, they can shapeshift, into strange shapes. Because why not, if you can, right? And it helps us, I think working with Angrboda too, is a way for us to think about how we desire to shapeshift our life. Maybe not physically shapeshift. We're not suddenly going to turn into a wolf. We can do it in the spirit world, maybe not so much in the physical world. I'm not sure how I deal with a muzzle in ordinary reality, but that idea that we are malleable. We are malleable. We can reforge ourselves in concert with the spirits who love us into an ever more expanded, wise, compassionate being than we might be able to imagine now. We're capable of that. But without that kind of support, it's, people will say, oh, you're just in your ego, or what makes you think you can do that? You weren't born for that. Come on. Right? We've gotten enough of that in our lives. No matter how young or old you are, there's always a naysayer that tells you can't do that. Come on. Angrboda says otherwise. She says, you are capable of being exactly who you are. And in fact, exactly who you are will not force them, but encourage those around you to evolve themselves. Because if you've been in the presence of someone that is quite empowered, and I don't mean a bully, but someone who's able to feel grounded and present and, able to speak their mind without having to shout, but they have this presence. Everyone is capable of that. Everyone is capable of being that fullness of who you are. And a fullness maybe that is beyond the edge of your perception right now. And that's an important thing to take away from these beings. First of all, that they're so outside of the fence that anything is possible. They remind us anything is possible. And particularly in our own evolution, because my idea is, let me back up a little bit, is that we as a species have to do some serious and quick evolution, because we have big work to do. We have big work to do to help support the earth by changing ourselves, help support the earth to rebalance herself in a way that is good for all species. Shamans always advocate on behalf of harmony and balance for all beings. So that means we need to be the best versions of us, because we are, first of all, hardwired to everything else in our collective of our species. And our species is interconnected to all the other species on the planet. So don't negate that, oh, I'm still working on myself. I haven't moved beyond working on myself. Some people get really like Eeyore about that, right? But that's our place of greatest influence. Right here in our bodies, in our lives, in how we behave in the world, what we think, all of that is the sphere of our greatest influence. And these spirits can support us with their bigness and their fierceness and their, you know, able to do stuff that others can't, they can help us to like, oh yeah, well, maybe I got more in me than I think. So, by the way, if you have questions as you go along, I can see the chat and you can put them in the chat. And if I don't get to them right away, I will. So that idea, I want you to think about all the ways that you have compromised yourself to fit in the box. Not with judgment. I don't mean for you to judge yourself, but all the ways that you compromised yourself to fit in the box. And this goes beyond any one gender. That's really important that you notice where you made those compromises. Again, without judgment, you were doing the best you could at the time. And make note of them somehow for yourself, whether you put them in your journal or you write them on a piece of paper and put them on your little altar. Have, first of all, kindness for yourself that you figured out how to survive a situation by making yourself a little smaller, a little more compact, whatever you did to compromise yourself so you could survive. That is a valid strategy. It's just that maybe you need to expand to fill that space again. So don't punish yourself for the adaptations that you did. You were operating without a handbook. None of us got the handbook when we came in. None of us got a user's manual. You did the best that you could do with the information you had. So good on you, right? And the list can help you to know what aspects of you need to be unpacked. So if you learned that, for instance, you were too much as a child, like, oh, you talk too much, or you're too loud, or, you know, a lot of people have had to adapt themselves and make themselves smaller in some way. Obviously, it didn't work on me. I'm 6'1". So, and I come from a lot of big energy. So that idea that you adapted as best you knew how to do at the time. But now, with the support of the spirits that you already work with and adding some of these to your repertoire of spirits, your retinue, that's the proper word, your retinue of spirits, you now have more resources to take those one at a time, and whatever aspect of you was lost in that diminishment to survive can be returned to you, healed and returned. Each one of those can be an opportunity for soul retrieval from the teachers that you work with. So any place that you felt like you made yourself small, and it was the right choice, but you made yourself small. Maybe you didn't use your voice as much. Maybe you tried not to be as outgoing as because the introverted parents thought, oh my gosh, you talk too much. Whatever it is, be kind to yourself as you make the list, because you are participating in your own healing. You are participating in a shape shift that those troll women are very good at. You are participating in a healing of yourself by acknowledging not just the wound and the pain of it, but where you participated in keeping yourself safe, keeping yourself inside the fence. And now you're able to work with the teachers that you know and love and that love you. You can add the ones that I've been talking about and expand back in to your fullness. You deserve that, first of all, as an individual. And the more whole each one of us feels, the more of us that goes back online, the more resource we have here to be able to engage with the world around us, to work in concert with other people to make change, and have it be positive change for all beings, Remember, we work for the balance and harmony that is for all life, all beings. So part of why I want to introduce you to Angrboda is that you will be received however you perceive yourself. If you perceive yourself as too old, handicapped, somehow made not right, or that you just don't have it, what you need in life, it will not matter to her. She will take you as you is and love you. And so I'm going to do a guided journey. Now, for those of you who journey well, there'll be a recording of this. So the setup will be on the recording, and then you can always do a journey on your own. But some people are still wobbly in their journey skills, and it is helpful to have a guided journey. So if that would drive you out of your mind, you can either step off for a little while and come back, or do the journey later on your own. So I'm going to now fiddle with my sharing the screen, which is always fun because they keep moving all the buttons just to make me crazy. And it's working. So this is going to be, let's give you about 20 minutes. And you can allow yourself to really be in the journey as best as you can. And the intent is to go to the iron wood, and I will guide you. Bring along your own power animal, your own teacher, and you'll have an experience with Angrboda. You'll meet her so that you can go back and meet her again. So if you're one that needs to inspirit yourself, let's do that first. If you have a rattle or drum that you want to shake a shamanic booty a little bit before you go into a journey, it's good to feel empowered. You can shake your rattles where you are. Your mic is off. And then I will start our drumming recording here. So right where you are, take a nice deep breath. For the words spirit, inspiration, and respiration all come from the same root. So as you breathe in, think of yourself enlivening your spirit as well as your body, and opening to inspiration from who you will meet. And you can call your power animal or your teacher to you right where you are. They can meet you in the middle world here. And when you feel ready, imagine yourself getting up and walking to the door that leads to the outside. When you get there, know that when you go through that door, you will be in the presence of the world tree in a beautiful, beautiful place. Beautiful place. And so step out with your familiar spirit into a world that is all the colors of green, and all the blossoms are blooming all at once. And there's aroma of evergreen. And you can hear high above your head, beyond your vision, the rustling of tree branches and leaves of Yggdrasil, the great world tree. And it is so large that we can travel either in the tree or to the edge of the tree. And I think we'll go in the tree today. And so as you approach the tree, it will feel as though you are walking closer and closer to a wall of bark. For this is a tree that is bigger than anything that you can imagine. It makes the ones in the Pacific Northwest look like twigs, for it contains everything. And the closer you get, you see a kind of sliver of light outlining a door. And as you approach it, it simply creaks open. And there is this beautiful radiance that you step into. And there are small spirits there guiding you onto a path to Unraveling in her world, the Iron Forest. And like Dorothy, on the path to Oz, you move along that radiance, up and up into the tree, and you're turning around and around and around in a spiral, and then you're being moved off in a direction where you suddenly see a landscape inside the tree. There's a landscape that has mountains in the distance, towering mountains that are covered in snow, and you and your companion spirit are there on the way to the iron wood that is part of that world where those mountains are. Move along the path that leads you toward the mountains, one step in front of the other. And notice, with whatever your strong sense is, what this place feels like, looks like, sounds like. Use all of you to perceive where you are. You're moving over little hillocks. The foothills are just beginning. But it's easy for you to walk over them on the path, for the way has been made for you. Unraveling is all ready to receive you, and so the path opens up under your feet. It keeps opening up for you to take step after step, and each step becomes lighter. There's a quality of lightheartedness that the path gives you, of excitement even. As you're rising up, as each of these hills gets a bit taller, you can see that there is a split in that mountain range. And that is where the path is leading. And perhaps you speed up your steps a bit, but still feel that effortless moving forward. And then you're stepping in to the iron forest. Right there at the edge, you can feel the coolness of that forest. It's dark compared to the path and the place that you've walked through, but not menacing in the least. The trees here are enormous and very old. And yet the path is still there, brilliant, that leads you in. And it's like being enveloped in the evergreen. That you're enfolded in that scent that not only wraps itself around you, but fills you up, evergreen, ever alive. For you are, whether you're in a body or beyond your body at some point, you are still a presence. And this place reminds you that you are that presence, capable of evolution, growth, change. And the path is now opening up to a clearing. where there is an unusual gathering of very large individuals. And some of them have long, furry ears. Some of them have muzzles like wolves. Others look as though they were caught somewhere between two different species, and they kind of like it. And they all look joyful. Yes, they look fierce too, but there's a joy in it. It's a celebration of being exactly who they want to be now. And they may want to be something else later. That ability to shift and change and evolve with complete delight. And they kind of like that they scare some of the others, because the others need a little bit of scaring to not be so domesticated. And they move aside a bit, because sitting there on a very rustic throne made of some of those trees is Angrabota. And Angrabota stands up from her chair and towers above you. Towers also a bit above the others. And you can watch her face change as if it's made of mercury or something that can change shape rapidly. You see her looking like your people, first of all, your color skin, your texture hair, and then she'll shapeshift into a wolf. And that wolf shapeshifts in different colors: gray, black, white, grizzled. And then she loses her muzzle and lets her ears stay. And when she smiles, she's kept her canines. But there's no menace in that smile. It's a smile that says, "Oh, good, you've finally come. I've been waiting for you." And you can feel as if she has a heart as big as her body, receiving you. Receiving the parts that maybe you hide in your shadow. The parts of you that you're not as fond of. The parts of you that maybe got you in trouble. She'll take all of you. She accepts you, and in fact motions with her now human hands. They look a little furry at the wrists, but human hands, she beckons you toward her. And it's as if you cannot help but being drawn forward. This great shape-shifting mother who receives all of who you are. You step into her embrace, and for a moment, you feel the shape-shifting she can do inside of your body. You can feel that shiver as you grow a few inches, shrink a few inches, get longer ears, get claws on your fingertips. And it giggles. You feel the giggles when it happens. You're not afraid, for it happens so quickly. It's like a game. And held by Angrabota, you can feel her laughter, her joy at a child learning that they can walk, and you learning that you are lovable just as you are, and that you are capable of changing yourself endlessly. And she throws her head back and howls with delight. And all the others howl and bark and growl in unison with delight. For you are joining them enough to be more of you. The you that maybe you haven't explored just yet. The you that maybe has a little more fierceness for life than you might believe, or can stand his or her own a lot better than you think you can. or is unafraid to laugh and howl when laughing and howl is completely appropriate, and even when it is only appropriate for you. You will howl and laugh because you want to. And she releases you and picks you up as if you were a child, a toddler, for she is quite a bit larger than you. And she's holding you in front of her. And she helps you sit down in her hands, curling her fingertips so you have something to rest against. And what she does next is remarkable. She closes her eyes that have shape-shifted from several colors that you see in human eyes to this amazing golden just before she closes them. And she is traveling with you in a journey. You can feel her moving through the realms. She says, "We will find what is missing, and it will not come back until it is ready for you." And so she's traveling to that one thing that is the most important for you. That one aspect of you that you diminished because you felt you had to, and it's been hard to bring it back. But she's found that part that got left in the Utangard. And that part continued to grow. She was not, and he was not, and they were not lost. They did not disappear. They continued in that Utangard to grow as only nature can grow, in the wildness and in the way that is right for you. And this aspect of you stands tall and looks at you and then softens like, oh, I remember you. You had to leave me behind. You made yourself small, but I'm here. And Angrabotha transfers you to one hand and picks up that being and sets this being that is you on top of you. And this aspect of you melts into you. And she lays one of her great fingers on your chest, above your heart. This one is healed. This one is ready for you to express. This one has just enough wildness to make you whole. And she does that same invocation on the top of your head. And then gathering you back into two hands, she sets you down again. She sets you down to feel all the way down to your feet, this aspect of you re-inhabiting you. That you will learn in journeys to that aspect how to really bring forth the energy that aspect of you holds. And Angrabotha bows to you, bringing her great head down. And when she raises it again, she howls with joy for you. Oh! And then it breaks into laughter. She said, go back to being in your body. Come visit me anytime, but go back to your body where you can feel this aspect and work with this aspect. And she asks the ones that are in our forest to part the way for you, and they create an honor guard. These giantesses create an honor guard to escort you out of the iron forest. And you leave somewhat reluctantly, but with the scent of evergreen in every cell, and that aspect of you tucked inside, just aching to fill you again completely. And you step out into the air that is clear in the mountains, and your steps are more like skips. You and your companion, animal, or teacher moving quickly back down that path, back down into the tree, and spend a moment or two in the tree to feel embraced by it. And then you slip down to right where the door is, and you step out and allow yourself a moment as the door closes behind you to take in that place, take in that experience. Breathe it in. And at this callback, give thanks to your visit with Angrboda and the others in the Iron Forest. Thank the being that traveled with you, if they did. And take your time coming back to your body, opening that door again and returning back to where you began. That you allow yourself during this fast drumming to re-inhabit your body with a spirit that has been boosted by more of you, that has been embraced by Angrboda, that has met all that fearsomeness, and not only survived, but has been given a gift to thrive. So please do take some time to write some notes. Just so you don't forget, journeys can sometimes be as ephemeral as a dream. You think you're going to remember it, and then woof, out it goes.
I never like to interrupt the silence after a beautiful journey like that, but that was really, really wonderful. Mesmerizing, in fact.
So just finish up your notes, folks. Give yourself an opportunity to just record bullets, if nothing else. And then take stock a moment. You know, we're on pause here. We're doing something together. We're on pause from our ordinary life, right? Let yourself just check in. Get an opportunity to just check in and notice how you feel. If you feel a little spacey and grounded, just feel your clothing against your skin, your butt in the chair, perhaps the air in the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes. And bring yourself fully back. But notice how you feel. What has shifted? And without judgment, it might have shifted a tiny bit, it might have shifted a lot, doesn't matter. because you're always in process. That's the beauty of not only being a human being, but having the gift of being able to journey. You are capable of evolving for as long as you live. In fact, finally, science has told us that our brains are plastic, which just means that they can continue to make new neural pathways as long as we're alive. It used to be, oh, only young people could do that. Well, that's not true. And the more you travel the new pathways, they become like superhighways. And the old pathways you're not using will simply shrivel. So think about yourself in new ways. Let yourself try on some new skins in the privacy of your own home, perhaps to start. But try some of that shape-shifting in human form. Like, well, what haven't I worked with in my life? What do I need to learn to sing? Do I have a desire to be something other than who I thought I was? And the truth is, only you can give yourself that permission. You can be what you are meant to be, if it's your own soul guiding you, and you can defy what other people said you were meant to be. Because it's important to express the fullness of your spirit while you are alive, while you can still taste and touch and interact with the physical world. My primary teacher actually is my great-great-grandmother. She's a wonderful well ancestor and has, I wish I could write the names of the goddesses in the chat, but they have Old Norse letters in some of them, and I can't do that on my keyboard. So I imagine that Tricia will put some of the information from the description I gave her in the YouTube recording. Is that possible, Tricia?
I absolutely will. Yep. They'll all be listed under the recording.
There we go. Okay. So thank you for the question, Janice. So being who you are is something she has hammered home, and she says it's also important for you to gather all of your experiences and save them. And the first time she said that, I said, even the sad ones, even the ones that were really awful? She says, yes. And I went, why? And she says, because when you no longer have a body, you will not have senses. You will not have eyes to see or ears to hear. You won't be able to smell the scents that you love or feel the softness of a newborn or a kitten. You will not have that. You will never feel the breeze again on your face. However, if you've filled that basket of memories with all of it, you will be able to go over that like treasure. You'll be able to recall what it smelled like to smell a rose. You will be able to look at that terrible thing that happened to you and go, that made me somewhat who I am. I gained a lot of strength through that, didn't I? And you will appreciate, she says, you will appreciate all of those things that made you in your life. And that will be the richness that you go over, and that may decide what you do next in the world of spirit. And that to me was like one of those paradigm shifting experiences, like, oh, okay, so you don't just move past the stuff that wasn't good. Keep that too, as a remembrance of the you that you were that moved through it. And so we can continue that evolution and growth as long as we're alive. And we'll get into more mischief when we're out of our bodies, I'm sure. And as we give ourselves that full permission to be more off the leash, I'm thinking of, I live on the coast as well in northern New England. And there are beaches that allow dogs. And, you know, the dogs go there on leash. But then at some point, their owners get down on a knee and unhook them. And the dogs do zoomies up and down the beach and up and down the beach and into the surf and back and forth. And it's like they've been set free. I want you to take your leash off. take your leash off. Maybe not in every situation, because you might scare the people you're around, although a little scare is not a bad thing. But take the leash off of you as often as you can, that you allow yourself to expand into your fullness. And you're going to surprise some of the people that are close to you, like, you never said anything like that before, with an eyebrow cocked. And you say, well, it occurred to me to say it now. And you hold that place inside of you as this sacred container that holds so much more than you ever thought possible. In some ways, our bodies are kind of doorways to the spirit. We journey through, a hole in a tree, or we do this, that, or the other thing in the spirit world. But this vessel is also a doorway to spirit. It's a doorway to spirit. Our own, first of all, and then the way we connect with the spirits of nature, the spirits of other living things that are around us, the trees, the plants, the microbes in the soil that they haven't even begun to classify yet. There are so many of them. Other ones that are bilaterally symmetrical like we are. They have eyes and nose in the middle and ears on the side. And those that have strange shapes to us, but we can relate to them because they are part of this marvelous planet. And so we can interact with all of these beings in spirit. Even if we may not want to go up close to a Nile crocodile to say hello, we could do that in a journey. We can understand that spirit. We may look like food to a real tiger in ordinary reality, but we can get to know their spirit in a journey. And that helps to repair the way we have been torn out of the fabric of nature. It helps to reweave us, because nature is expressed as someplace you go to on vacation. In Western colonial culture, you go to the seaside, you go to the forest, you go to the mountains on vacation. We're gonna go have an experience in nature, completely forgetting that we are nature. We are embedded in nature. We are woven into her intimately. We cannot survive without her. In fact, when we send astronauts beyond the Earth, they are dependent on all this technology to do the simple things that we do down here, like breathe. So think of that you are an integral part. And I believe, this is no greater wisdom than me sitting here in the chair, that nature longs for us. In the same way that a biozone begins to go wrong when a keystone species is gone, it starts to fail. We have pulled ourselves so far from nature in our civilization. And I'm not to say that we're all to go to cabins in the woods. That's not what I mean. But to recognize that we are dependent on nature, that we are part of nature, and nature longs for all of her children to be present. She wants that wholeness that we keep resisting. And I don't mean you individually, but us as a collective. And so when I think of nature longing for me, that changes my experience of the natural world. That, oh right, it's like I haven't been close enough to my mother. I haven't called, I haven't written, I haven't been present with her. Or if you see the earth as masculine as well, I haven't been with my mother, father for a long time. And I need to recall that they made me. Yes, I had ordinary reality parents. They delivered the DNA, but all the stuff that the DNA is made of in my bones, in my blood, and everything came from the earth, who in turn got some of it from the cosmos. And here each one of us sits, it's miraculous that we're here. We're made of all of that. We're made of our planet. We're made of what she got from the cosmos. And we need to step more fully into that and recognize our preciousness. Not from like, oh, I'm more precious than anything. I don't mean like that. I mean that we are as precious as the animals we love, or the favorite tree we have, or the mountain that we go to visit. We're as precious as all of that. We're as precious as the squirrel that raids the bird feeder outside. The birds that make the song. Watching the eagle go so high that you lose sight of them because they become a pinprick. We are that important. And because there are so many of us, we have to remember that so that we can work in harmony more and more with the rest of the earth, with all of the aspects, and turn ourselves from the way that we've operated as takers. And none of us think of ourselves as takers, but culturally we are takers. We take what we need from the earth, and at least in previous generations, without much thought about it. And we're learning now, oh, we have to have open hands to give back and open hearts to give back. And this is good. Mother Earth had to shake us hard for us to begin to learn this lesson. But we are. And the more that we are our fullness, the better it is. So I see that messages have come in here. And if I miss you, I apologize. And there's all kinds of things about me that Tricia has put up. Okay, so I don't have to worry about those. Except to say thank you. So if you do have questions that I can answer, if I can't answer, I will be honest that I can't. The Worlds and Beings of Norse Mythology, the Swedish History Museum. There you go. Nice to meet a Swede. I've got Norwegians in my background, which at one point we were Swedish too. So at the other point we were Danish. So there you go. We're all cousins. That's the other thing. Do you know, by the way, that everyone on the planet is related? I think the last number I saw, no greater than being a 10th cousin. Now let that seep in, even if it's a bigger number, because my memory is not what it used to be, but I believe that it was a 10th cousin. That everyone on the planet, no matter how they look, where they live, what language they speak, makes no never mind, they are your cousins. So begin to think about that when you're moving around in the world. It'll be on the YouTube recording. You'll see it in text, the names of the spirits. You're welcome. So that's a good way for us to begin to slowly reweave ourselves together as a collective. Like, oh, it's not about accepting somebody for who they are. It's like they're family, and some of our family we get along better with, and some of our family we may not get quite along with as well, but they're family. We got to work with them. And that shift is a huge paradigm shift instead of the this is mine and that is yours attitude that we've been doing. In fact, some in the past were this is mine and yours is mine too. We can't do that anymore. We have to remember that it is about sharing the world and being our fullness so that we can work with all the other species that are going. They're drumming their invisible fingers. I think of the plants drumming their invisible fingers and the animals drumming their invisible fingers going, will you please wake up? And we are, but it's slow. And so the more full that we are, the easier it is. Visit Angrabotha as often as you need to feel that sense of inspiritedness. That you can feel maybe at times that you too have furry ears. That your heart can grow quite large enough to hold everything that you need to love. That you have capacity far beyond what your mind tells you. Oh, there you go. Linda is busy at the keyboard. There's some information about Angrabotha. But it's always good to meet the spirits in person. So let yourself reconsider who you are. Like, who am I today? Who am I going forward? I know who I've been. It's easy to remember the past, mostly. But who are you going to take of you forward? How big are you going to let yourself be as you go forward? How tinged with wildness are you going to be as you move forward? How much of your domesticity are you going to leave, your domestication, behind you, that you might sweep aside with your great tail? Let yourself dream that into being, that you are far more powerful than you ever thought you were, and the more embodying you are of that fullness, the more you are helping to shift our collective, because we are wired to our collective. In fact, your feelings are contagious, if you don't already know that. That explains mob mentality, which used to drive me crazy when people talked about that when I was a child. It's like, well, why does everybody have to go crazy if somebody goes crazy? And it's because our feelings are contagious. If you've ever worked in an office, it only takes one person complaining in the office before everyone in the office is complaining. And so if you are in a place of fear or anger or judgment or all the other faces of fear, anxiety, whatever it is, you are putting that out into the collective. Not only your body, but everybody else around you gets the splash. And then they will act from that place in them. However, this is where you get to be a stealth shaman. If you cultivate the feelings, because only the feelings count in this case, the feelings of gratitude, love if you can manage it, appreciation and compassion. I find the easiest one for people to do in ordinary reality is gratitude, something that you are really grateful for. And it can be as simple as jumping in the shower after you've been gardening and you're all sticky. Or that somebody that you care about made it through surgery. You can feel your shoulders are no longer earrings. They drop. And let yourself recall that experience until you feel the feelings again, because they are radiating out from you. And as they radiate out from you, the changes that you're experiencing when you're in love, gratitude, compassion, appreciation, your body resets. It negates a stress reaction. First of all, your upper brain goes back online because your biochemistry says, oh, it's okay to think. You don't just have to run away or hide or fight. You can be present and try to solve the problem. Your cardiovascular system will love you because that will reset. Your digestion will go back online. And best of all, in every one of your cells, your DNA will relax into its perfect conformation. Your conformation of your DNA, you may have heard proteins have to be folded a certain way, and prion disease is because a protein is not folded correctly. Part of the epigenetic field, that which influences your genes, is the shape of the DNA molecule. So the more it's in that stress reaction, the more it's likely to not function well. And in that what we call a DNA cramp here in this house, in that DNA cramp, it may not be able to do cellular repair and regeneration as well as it could. But when you're in love and gratitude, it relaxes and it can do its job perfectly. So you are providing, first of all, a healing for you, and then you are being gracious as a stealth shaman and letting that pour out on every being around you. And it has been measured in tests by the Institute of Heart Math. That's a wonderful organization. And it's been registered in 2 samples of one donor DNA that one person over here changed their feelings, and both samples, half a mile away, reacted by, relaxing. So think about how powerful you might really be. So that idea that we, in our fullness, and modulating, not by shutting ourselves down, but going, yes, I'm afraid, and when I'm afraid, I can't solve the problem because my brain goes offline. My upper brain, my reasoning brain is like out the door. My immune system takes a hit. By the way, 10 minutes of anger, you get or fear, a 6-hour decrease in your immune response. In the days of pandemics, you might want to think about that as well. So when you have this moment of fear, somebody cuts you off in traffic, or you get really ticked off at somebody, let yourself get into neutral. Breathe with a focus on the center of your chest. Your heart is probably hammering at that point. Just breathe and focus on that heart. And that's like getting the car back in neutral. It's stuck in reverse. You want to get back into neutral first, right? And after 10 or so, I was born in New York, I take 15. Then you recall that situation that had you feel love or gratitude as richly as you can so that the feelings come back. And this is like doing this incredible magic inside of yourself. And when you have those feelings of gratitude or love, fill yourself up with them to overflowing. I know I have memories of gratitude that actually make me weep. They're so sweet. And when you're in that state, you are giving that gift to every cell of your body, every molecule in your body, and you are becoming a healing force for everything around you. So there, step into that too. Let's see, you're more powerful. You were told those feelings are not as important as your thinking. Well, the truth of the matter is they affect all of reality. So now you can do that anytime, anywhere. When people are arguing in a restaurant and you would like to not have indigestion, just go to your place of gratitude and fill up with it. And you will notice the entire restaurant settle down. We used to do this in meetings of 30 professionals at our health center. Everyone thought they were very smart, and everybody wanted to talk at the same time. And it was a lunch meeting. So my partner and I would simply go to that place of gratitude, and eventually all the noise quieted down and they started to take turns again. And we did this for probably six to 9 months before we let on what we were doing. And so it was like, well, what were you doing? And we taught them. So once you feel comfortable with this process, teach someone. Teach your children, your grandchildren, your friends, because then they can become healing forces just with the feelings in their body. Each one teach one. And this can go out into the world and make a huge difference. Just by getting people back into their fullness, back into being able to use their brain and be able to actually solve a problem instead of complaining about it or being afraid. Imagine that. So if there are questions, please do ask them. We have about 20 minutes or so left. If you have a question that I can answer, any shamanic question will do.
That's a nice offer. Any shamanic question will do. You also had offered a gift for everybody here today, and I'd love you to tell people about that. And if I'm not mistaken, you have a course coming up in October.
I do.
So you could
And it involves,
tell us a little bit about those things, and maybe people will have questions.
very good. Thank you for that prompt. So I'm giving you, there is an address that you will get uh, probably on the recording. I don't know if you'll put it also here on the chat. But it is a journey to a lesser known goddess called Thrud. And don't ask me to spell it because one of them is a letter that does not show up on my keyboard. But it will be also available when you type in the address of where you get your journey. And it's a guided journey again. And Thrud is an interesting character. She has the power of her father. Her father is Thor. But she has the softness of her mother, Sif, who is one of the earth goddesses. She's like the goddess of grain. I always think of the softness of grain when it's ripe and a breeze rustles across farmland and you watch it just, the tops of it wave. That's her energy. So Thor is half giant, so she's got some of that giant energy in her. And she's also got the softness of her mother. She is strong and kind. They actually can dance together. She has this tempering from her mother that allows her to be very, very gracious, very kind. She's very grounded, and she's a wonderful teacher to work with, improving your confidence and to encourage your actual courage. So to have the courage to be who you fully are and to have the confidence to express it in the world. Like to be it, right? To really be it. So that is a goddess that you can add to your retinue. And excuse me, again. I had a friend whose mother was a botanist, and her rule was never dabble in the sex life of plants. They do it far better than you do. So all that pollen is them doing what they need to do to reproduce, and all it does is make us sniffle. But that's their job. Leave it be. And the course, so that's your free gift. The course is actually to actually interact with these spirits that I talked about today. It's a 9-week course. It's called Embodying the Sacred Feminine. And you will work with these spirits in your own journeys. And you will have the opportunity to really learn who they are first person. So there are, when I do courses, I have some preparatory material that you get. You have the course, then you have deepening exercises that you can do afterwards. And of course, everything gets recorded. So if you miss a live session, you can always go back and play it again. And I have a wonderful production manager that helps me look good at all of that. Bless his heart. Let's see what we got for messages here. As I, do you know that if you hold down a key on your keyboard with a smile? Yes, I know about holding down the keyboard, but it's like, I'm not going to mess with the keyboard if I need it for something else. It's okay. And Joshua, who's here, hi Joshua, when you get the free gift, you'll also get you'll be on the email list for the updates on the course. So that's, you'll get that news when you receive the free gift. Thank you for being present, Joshua.
Yes, I'll say thank you to Joshua as well. It's not usual for me to have an assistant.
He is
lovely.
He's a treasure, let me tell you. He's just wonderful. And thankfully we get on like a house on fire. So, if there's anything that you want to ask, you're welcome to ask. We have about 20 minutes together. Everybody's saying thank you, which is, I'm very pleased that you enjoyed it. But if there's anything that you want from me, get it now. Get it now. Do you have any questions, Tricia?
Well, I have to say that the world of Norse goddesses is new to me.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the descriptions were so incredibly beautiful. And the shape-shifting aspect was really gorgeous. I love the idea of having furry ears and a tail.
Me too.
And just the whole thing about getting outside of the corral. I'm not exactly sure how you said it, but getting outside of the all the ways that we guard ourselves and all the ways that we, I would say, limit ourselves because of how we think we're going to be perceived if we step outside of the box. And I just thought that was such a beautiful teaching. I just so appreciated it.
I think you and I are sort of a similar vintage, or close enough. And there were all these rules for those of us in female bodies when we were young about how we had to sit, how we had to have a voice in a certain way, all these rules that we had to follow that we had no idea why there were these rules. And we never got the rule book. And we got kind of scolded when we forgot a rule. So it's good to think that we can shapeshift, It's like, it's the ultimate in liberation. It's like, oh, I can be as loud as I need to be. I can be as strong as I need to be. I can sit how I desire to be and be comfortable. And that is like, whoo! When you finally get that, it's like, yeehaw. Alicia has asked, can you speak a little bit about the relationship between Freya and Frigg? Or Frigga, so it's pronounced different ways. And I have found, in my experience, I tend to work more with the Vanir. And I do that. Freya is of the Vanir. There's the Aesir, the ones at the top of the tree, and the Vanir are the other. There are two families of gods in Norse mythology. You talk about interesting family dynamics. And there are some crossings in there. So the ones in Vanaheim are ones that I tend to work with more often because they're much more connected to nature. Frigg is sort of queenly in a different way in my experience, and everybody has a different experience when they journey to these spirits. What was written down in the sagas, remember, was at least 200 years after Christianization. So, well, hang on. Let's go back there. Anyway. Just a second here. There we go. I'm trying to figure out where we were. So Frigg, I'll just go. Frigg tends to be very sort of queenly and motherly from that queenly sense. And Freya is a little more of a wild spirit. She is a mother goddess as well, but hers is done a little more like with her hair untied and barefoot, and also capable of donning all the armor that is necessary to support her role as sort of queen of the Valkyries. Let's see. Hold on. You guys are all over it here. Somebody asked the question, what are the key lessons I would share with children? That they are capable of becoming whatever adult they can dream. And they don't have to know what it is now. All their job is to be the best version of themselves at the age they are now. Like, who do you really want to be right now? And is all of that feel right to you? And they can check in with their feelings. They can learn what feels right and what doesn't feel right. And check in with them as they get to their next birthday. All right, what feels different about being this age now? What has moved and shifted and changed inside of you? And even though that sounds very sophisticated to talk to a child that way, kids get it. They get that magic happens. In fact, if you can talk to them before the age of 7 and work with it, they will hold that for the rest of their lives, that life really is magical and you can do a lot with it, even though some people don't talk about it. And as far as books, I don't know any books for children around the gods. This may be where you in your role become the storyteller. I was blessed by generations of storytellers, grandparents on both sides, a great-grandmother, her siblings, and they told stories. My great-grandmother told stories that she learned from her grandmother. So we're talking like 100 years worth of stories, or more probably. And what a great foundation to give a child. You're giving them history. You're teaching them that people can survive terrible things and they're changed by it, but they go forward. All the things that those storytellers taught me, you can be the one that teach the children. And not just, the funny stories or what have you. You can teach them what you have learned. And they'll take it or leave it, because every child is an individual. But you're planting seeds when you tell stories. And so be sure that the stories you tell are seeds that you want to see grow. And not just that, oh, my story is going to continue, but that's a good seed for that little one. That's a good seed. Because children are like fertile soil. They will manifest as they are taught and told stories to, and grow. And we want them to not be distorted and have to go through all the stuff we did. We want them to grow full and rich, fully themselves, with a lookout world, here they come. And to be brave. Not foolhardy, but to be brave, to be courageous, to be confident. And to also be humble when you don't know. It's okay to not know everything. Nobody knows everything. That's why we have libraries and the internet. We've got one more message here. Really been feeling storytelling is needed. Yeah. Storytelling is powerful. And if you can remember some of the ones your elders told you that stuck with you, figure out what the seed was in them for you. Take it apart. Take that story apart and go, why is it that story stuck with me so much? What was the seed? And if it isn't a positive seed, you can flick it. But if it is a strong seed that has stayed with you for a good reason, then work on growing that seed even more inside you. Allow it to blossom in new ways, in new colors. Because, again, you're worth it. You are a doorway to the collective. And you are splendid just as you are, even in your becoming. That is actually a good thing to put in there. Thank you, Tricia. There's a wonderful book. Somebody else in our network here, Imelda Almquist, has a book called Natural Born Shamans. She raised sons and she taught them things. And so she has some good guidance for introducing how to be connected to spirit to your children. And it's brilliant. She's a deer. She's really a deer. I don't mean the four-legged variety. I mean like a deer soul. She's a good egg. As my grandfather used to say, she's a good egg.
She could be a deer.
She could be a deer.
I think some days she's a polar bear, some days she's a
probably
fox, someday.
Yeah. Like all of us.
Exactly.
What stories would I tell? That's a good question, Fern. I don't recall any of my elders telling stories. I'm sorry for that. What kind of stories would I tell? Well, what is it that has made you who you are? What were the powerful lessons in your life? What were things like when you were younger? Because it's history that is unknown to children. And you share how you worked with things as things changed. Like when 8-tracks weren't useful anymore and we moved to cassettes, and then we moved to CDs, and then we moved to MP3s, and we had MP3 players, and whether it be through technology or some interchanges for yourself, how did that work? How did you feel when you went through them? Like, that would be a heck of a story to help somebody through puberty. Like, you're going to be changing, but here's what I learned, and you get to do yours in your way, but it'll be okay, even though you feel awkward and you all feel like you're all knees and elbows and your teeth don't fit your mouth and your hair looks terrible, and it's okay. It's kind of like you're in the chrysalis. Yes, you're in middle school, but you're in a chrysalis. And when you emerge out the other side, you're going to be very different than you are now. So take all of this as change that is positive. You may not like the way you look or how you feel, or I grew so fast that the long bones in my legs and arms hurt. And my mother, who was also 6'1" when she was living, and our father was 6'7", said, "Oh, those are just growing pains." Who knew that was a real thing? I didn't. I was like, "Oh, and how long does that last?" "Until you're as tall as you're supposed to be." "Oh, great. Okay. Got it." But supporting people through those changes when they're young and knowing, like, oh, that's what that is. I'm not sick. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just growing so fast that my bones are having a hard time keeping up. Cool. That's a different message. Like, there's parts of me that are stretching that haven't stretched before in this way, this fast. That's a turn of events for somebody who, when they look in the mirror, feel, oh dear, which I think everybody who is like 13 must feel. Their skin erupts and their hair looks bad, and no matter what they wear, it doesn't look good, you know. This is Lovey. I'm assuming it's Lovey. It's great. In my 71 years of life, I say our stories come to us, and then we get to speak them. Listen and speak. Listen, then speak. Yep. But there are some packed away in there that we might want to excavate because they've changed us. And Jocelyn says, my daughter is 13. Yes, such big changes at this age. I mean, I feel sorry for kids in middle school. Oh, none of us would want to redo middle school, I don't think. Unless we want to suffer a bit for a couple of more years. So I want to say, as we're wrapping up here, that it has been a delight to share with you, to answer your questions as best I could and provide you a whole new bunch of spirits to go and meet. And Joshua has again put in the link for your free journey to Thrud. And you will get information upon registering for that. You'll get on the mailing list to get the information about the course, which you can choose to join us or not, up to you. So thank you very, very much. And thank you, Tricia, for being a wonderful hostess with the mostest. And all of you for taking time out of your day. Bless you all.
Thank you, Evelyn, again for being here. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your precious Saturday or Sunday, if you happen to be on the other side of the world. And we will look forward to seeing you again at our next Shaman's Directory live event. Take care, everyone. Thanks for being here.